This week's Parsha, Parashat Behar, begins by discussing the laws of Shemitah and Yovel. It's called Parashat Behar because it introduces these laws as having been told to the Jewish people at Har Sinai. And the obvious question is, why dafka these laws does the Torah introduce with the term Bahar Sinai? So Rashi quotes the famous Chazal, Ma'in Yan Shemitah Eitzel Har Sinai, who says we learn from here that just like Shemitah, all of the details, and not just the broader principles, were presented at Sinai, so the other mitzvot. According to this explanation, it's nothing particularistic about Shemitah. Shemitah is just an example of the details that were also mentioned at Har Sinai. The Or HaChaim, though, asks a follow-up question. He says, why did the Torah choose specifically the mitzvah of Shemitah and Yovel as the example of the details that were given at Sinai? Why not use a different mitzvah to make this point? The Or HaChaim says because the Torah wants to teach us that our presence in Eretz Yisrael hinges on the fulfillment of the Torah that we received at Har Sinai. I believe we can develop this point of the Or HaChaim on a deeper level by noting how the Torah explains the significance of the laws of Shemitah and Yovel. The Torah, after presenting Shemitah and Yovel, summarizes that we are unable to sell even the land we own forever. Whatever land we sell goes back to its original owner at Yovel. And the Torah explains why. Ki li haaretz, because the land is really Hashem's. Ki gerim v'toshavim atem imadi. Your subletters, even in the land that you actually own. We remind ourselves of this when we stop working the land in Shemitah. We remember whose land it really is. We remember who's responsible for the payroll that we work to grow. But ultimately it's Hashem who's motzi min haaretz. And Yovel, when we return land, reminds us that we're living in God's land. This is critical to the perspective of Eretz Yisrael, to realize that we're living in borrowed land, we're living in God's land, and therefore the laws need to be observed. The end of the Parsha applies this to our own person. The end of the Parsha talks about the laws of Avodim. A Jew cannot be sold as a complete Eved. He must go out at Yovel and must be treated as a worker as opposed to an Eved. And if a Jew is sold to a Goy, every Jew has a responsibility of trying to redeem him. And the Torah explains why. Ki li b'nei Yisrael avodim. We don't own our land. We don't own ourselves. We are meant to be committed to something higher. Our land is God's land, meant to be used for a certain purpose, and our lives are God's, meant to be devoted to the purposes He has in mind. The more a person remembers this perspective that we began learning at Har Sinai, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, the more a person realizes in mind and in deed the purpose of their lives, and the more they deserve their life and their land. If we want to continue to inhabit God's land, the land of Israel, we need to make sure that we constantly remind ourselves whose land it is, what our purpose here is, and what we should accomplish with it. Shabbat Shalom.